All right, welcome to the Starting Nine here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Sorry to scare anybody. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. My producer today is Manny Chang. I'm going to tell you about our sponsors, and we're going to talk a little bit more Miami Heat. Make sure you check out Five on the Floor from last night. I actually did it with Brady and Alex from down at the arena. It'll be up on the YouTube channel here shortly. We've also, of course, got Hangover Time on the YouTube channel. The guys from Miami Heat Beat handled that last night. We're sponsored here, as always, by our friends over at PrizePicks. Use code 5, F-I-V-E. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. Again, at PrizePicks, you can play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players together. You can play at the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com. Make sure you're using that code 5, F-I-V-E. And again, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. And we're running some tournaments on PrizePicks. Lots of other cool stuff coming down the pike here. So check it out. Getting rated the #1 fastest growing sports property or sports app in the country last year. Find out why. Go to PrizePicks. Use that code FIVE. We're also sponsored by friend Danny and his family over at All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them on Instagram. They got a website coming up here soon, but you can check out all of the great work that they do. You know, in South Florida, it is always hurricane season, right? Even if the hurricanes are not named storms yet, you got to be prepared for it. So don't wait until July or August. Reach out to All Pro Construction Builders now. I'm going to give you the phone number as I make it a little bigger because my eyes are not so great these days. 305-484-4429, 305-484-4429. Again, that's All Pro Construction Builders. They do a great job. They're fully licensed, fully certified. And again, it's a family business. They use American-made products. It's just a great place to go. And here's the other reason. You get 10% off if you mention 5 Reasons at All Pro Construction Builders. So just reach out to Danny. He's a huge Miami Heat fan, and have him help you. And again, get 10% off and get this done to protect your home or business prior to hurricane season. All right, let's get to it. The Miami Heat are now 2-3 on their homestand. I projected 2-4. I hate to say that may occur. Morning. And of course, this comes after a really good road win against Philadelphia. We said that this was the gauntlet for the Heat, that they had to show during this period of time that they could beat these teams that were either just ahead of them or just behind them in the standings. And again, they're 2-3. So last night, I mean, it was a reasonably good effort, actually. They did a good job on Donovan Mitchell. I went under on his PrizePicks before the game because they usually do a good job on Donovan Mitchell. He had 18, but Garland got off a little bit. Miami's offense went stagnant at times because of the turnovers, 22 turnovers on the game. And I know everybody's going to focus on the end of the game. We did a little bit last night. Two possessions in particular. Possession where Hero seemed to have a look. You kind of want him taking that shot, especially after he had made one from the corner a little bit earlier. He passes off to Strus. There was, and as Spoelstra described to Brady, Brady asked a question after the game, what was supposed to happen there? And apparently the first action got taken away. Jimmy made a good play to kind of seal it, to get so that Strus could get an open look. Strus did get an open look. And under most circumstances, your designated shooter, you would want taking that shot. I asked Max after the game how it felt. I said, feel good coming out of your hands? He said, always. But let's be honest, it has not felt that good going in the basket this year for him. I mean, he's 32.5% from three on very high volume. He's kind of plateaued after last season. And, you know, a lot of that has been roll. A lot of that has been sort of out of his control. But you have a look to win a game. He makes that, or at least tie a game. He makes that, and we're having a different conversation today. But I still think Hero's got to find a way to take that shot. Or somebody's got to find a way to help him and screen for him. No, there was no screening on that play. If you watch Bam, he's not really moving towards there. Again, it looks like the first action was taken away, and then it was kind of like, okay, let's improvise. They got a clean look, but that's not the possession I want to focus on, okay? It's the Oladipo possession a little bit before, where you've got Vic playing now as a closer because his defense is generally solid, but now you have no spacing in that final group with Martin and Oladipo, with Hero, Butler, and Bam. And so basically the Cavs wanted Oladipo to over dribble. They wanted Oladipo to take open shots. That's what, if you watch their defense, that's what they were playing for. And Depot had one possession where nobody else touches the ball. I mean, he tried to make a pass. The ball came right back to him. And then a shot at the end. And this is, at times he kind of thinks he's still Indiana Oladipo, and he's not. And you can't have possessions at the end of the game where Jimmy or Bam or, because of his track record late in games, Tyler are not getting the looks at the basket. So Those were the two possessions that most people are focusing on. I'm looking at the turnovers throughout the game, the inability to get into offense. Gabe Vincent has not played consistently well since he's been a starter. And now we're at this point, and I'm going to talk about the play-in here, but now we're at this point where players are being openly asked about how much they miss Kyle Lowry. I mean, that's where this is at. I cannot believe that's where this is at. Because if you to say what's the single biggest factor in the Heat being in this position in the play-in, it's because they didn't get anything out of their $28 million point guard this year. And now here we are, and players are being asked how much they miss Kyle's championship experience. It's Groundhog Day. Like we are, I kept saying, and we've talked about this on Five on the Floor, and Barry Jackson, I believe, actually made this point first, so credit to him. This whole season has been about get to this point and maybe something will change, right? Okay, so it started in the offseason, right? We'll make a move, and so this roster will get better. And of course, that did not happen, right? And I don't totally blame the Heat for that. I've gone through the reasons that it wasn't. They wanted to pay both Caleb Martin and PJ Tucker, but one of them, and wasn't because of the tax, but just because of the vehicles they had available to them to not be hard capped. One of them had to take less money. Neither of them had ever been paid over the course of their careers, so neither of them wanted to take less money. Caleb ended up getting a reasonable contract, okay, but he wasn't going to take less than that. All right, PJ could have taken 20% raises and gotten a 3-year deal for about roughly 24, 25 million. He wanted 3 for 30. It's about a $6 million difference over 3 years. He couldn't do that and pay Martin, or they would have been hard capped. That did not have anything to do with the tax. That's been clarified for me. Other things over the past year have had to do with the tax, but that did not have to do with the tax. So they didn't end up getting anything done. In fact, they lost PJ Tucker. Okay. And PJ's not had a good year with Philadelphia, but PJ also isn't being used in Philadelphia like he was being used by Eric Spoelstra. So he was a more important, effective player in Miami than he's going to be in Philadelphia, as is the case with many guys when they leave Spoelstra in this system, even the veterans. Okay, but like one of the things that was explained to me is one of the problems they've had with the non-Jimmy minutes this year is that they don't have any veteran to anchor it with Tyler. They don't have PJ Tucker or Kyle Lowry right now to anchor it with Tyler. And those units were better last year because when you took Bam and Jimmy off the floor, you still had veterans to anchor the unit. They don't have that. So anyway, off season, okay, nothing happened, right? Then you're waiting for Dwayne Dedmon to stop playing, okay? And then you're waiting to trade him, but you couldn't trade him until December 15th. So that was another point that you looked forward to. Okay. Then that took a while, right? Took 2 months before they were able to move him. And then they end up moving him basically for space, which ends up creating the next opportunity at the trade deadline when they don't do anything else. And then Kevin Love becomes available. And so you add him into the space. You add Cody Zeller. And the buyout guys have helped. Okay. And this comes in. Not re-signing PJ was a good move. Not immediately finding his replacement wasn't. Right. Well, right. But again, finding his replacement, there were a lot of other factors that went into that. So anyway, you get through the buyout deadline. So now that was the marker, right? So it was, okay, you're going to do something in the offseason. It doesn't happen. Then then Dedmon's contract becomes available for 2 months. Nothing happens except him throwing massage guns, right? Okay, then you get up to the trade deadline. Nothing happens except moving Dedmon. Then you get to the buyout deadline and something does happen. You add 2 bigs who've been moderately, well, Zeller's been better than Love in my opinion, but like they filled holes for you, okay? Supposed holes. All right, but then after that, there's nothing else to look forward to. Like, I mean, beyond that, you weren't going to add Dragic. You weren't going to add another player to that. There's nothing else to look forward to except Heat Family Fest and 4 days of 40 for Udonis Haslem. Like, we are at the point where it's like, okay, you've run out of things to look forward to. Okay, then it's, okay, you have a homestand. You can make up some ground. You got 6 games. You win 4 or 5 of them. Maybe you change the dynamic here. Well, now the most they're going to win is 3. Probably 2. And so I guess where we're at right now is now the next thing is waiting for Kyle Lowry to return. When that situation, more than any other, is what puts you in this position. Then again, you got nothing out of a $28 million salary slot this year. So I look, can Kyle help them if he comes back focused? Sure. I mean, he did help them last season. I mean, but can you count on that at this point? I mean, I think we're just wishing and hoping at this point. And that's why, to me, they look like a playing team. Let me get to a couple of these comments here, and then I'll finish my thought here. The offense is from Gio. Offense is boring and stale. The role players have a dangerous amount of confidence, and that's why we got Vic dribbling for 16 seconds. And can someone make a proper entry pass to Bam? Price? I mean, yes. That last part, the Bam thing, is infuriating. I don't. There are some things this team just does not do very well. And I don't get it because Eric Spoelstra has always coached these things well. So I don't know where the disconnect is. They do not get back on defense in transition. They do not stop the ball. That drives me insane, okay? Because they always used to do that. In transition on offense, they don't know how to create space for each other. It's like they're always running into each other. It's like when we see like one well-executed, fast break, we're like, oh my God. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to fill the lanes. They don't. That part drives me crazy. But the other thing is they cannot throw an entry pass. They can't. I mean, Kyle can do it, but he's not on the floor, and it really wasn't happening this year. Jimmy can do it, but he doesn't look for Bam that much. The number of passes or lack of passes sort of document that. And then you take a look at Tyler. Tyler and Bam had that pick and roll combination that was really working, but as Cooper Moorhead, who does excellent work at Heat.com, has pointed out, that kind of went off a cliff starting in about mid-January. Like, the numbers on it are terrible. And no, nobody else will pass to him. Gabe doesn't pass to him enough. Depot doesn't pass to him enough. And look, there was one possession at the end of the game where he didn't really do the right thing with it. But, I mean, you have to – he is one of your stars. And he has scored 30 points, I think, 10 times this year. And he has lived up to, even with the guards not feeding him, he has lived up to his promise to average 15 shot attempts per game. I think he's still at 15.5 to 16. But they cannot throw a proper entry pass. You're correct. It drives me insane. So let's get to the plan. Okay. They are now 3 games behind the Nets for 6. Okay. The Nets, who have, think of what's happened to the Nets this year. All right. This is why the excuses for the Heat, I can't. You had a trade demand over the summer from Kevin Durant. You had Kyrie being Kyrie. Okay. You had Durant at the time that the Nets were playing extraordinarily well. I think they won 11 straight, right? And one of those was against Miami. Then Durant gets hurt in the game against Miami. Okay. Then you trade Kyrie. You trade Kevin. And there's still 3 games ahead of the Heat. And now you've got a guy in Mikal Bridges who's playing at like a Jimmy Butler level. And so do I think they're catching them the way they're playing right now? Like, the Nets are on this road trip, okay, where they get Denver. They had the easy one against Houston. They got that out of the way. But they've got Denver, they've got Milwaukee, they've got Minnesota. They can lose all those games. They could. They can come back to the pack on the Heat a little bit. But then look below you. See, this is the other problem now. Miami, which does not have the tiebreaker over the Nets, by the way. Nets coming to town next month. Miami is now is closer to 8, 9, 10 than they are to 6. And there are some teams behind you. Now, you did just beat Atlanta twice, thankfully. But Toronto gives Miami problems. You don't want to see them in a play-in situation. You don't. Okay? You get one Van Vliet game. Siakam, you know what he can do. They've got length everywhere. They can force the Heat into turnovers. I mean, that's not a great situation. I mean, I don't even want to talk about Washington. The fact that the Heat are even in a conversation where Washington is within striking distance of them at this point is embarrassing. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't expect that. I mean, even Kevin Love was asked last night about the play-in, by a bunch of the Cleveland reporters, and he noted that last year Cleveland was in the play-in, and they were up 20 on Atlanta and lost and got eliminated. Do we expect Jimmy to turn it up to such a level that he's going to carry them out of the play-in and then in a playoff series against Boston and Milwaukee? No, the only chance that the Heat have to make something of this season where it's not like a total embarrassment and a washout is to get to 6. They have to get to 6. If they get to 6, they'll get Philadelphia most likely in the first round. We know they know how to beat them. Now, I believe the Sixers are better this year, and the Heat, unfortunately, even though I think the Heat have more talent than last year, the Heat are worse, okay? But they know how to beat them. You do trust Spoelstra against Rivers in a playoff series, and you know Jimmy is going to be engaged against Philly. You just know it. Like, that he gets up for them, all right? But here's my thing about it. How much better can Jimmy play than he's playing right now? See, you're losing these games with Jimmy playing, which wasn't even happening earlier in the season, and also playing at a high level. I looked up his numbers yesterday per 36 minutes. He's averaging more points per 36 minutes on a higher shooting percentage than he has in any other season in his career. Better than any of his seasons in Minnesota, better than any of his seasons in Chicago, better than his bubble season in Miami, better than his season in Philadelphia. He's playing at a higher, more efficient level offensively. He's just not playing as many minutes, which is another thing that drives me nuts. Okay, and yesterday he got to 34 and a half, 35, because he played like 28 and a half through the end of the third. And then it's 7 minutes left, and he's still not walking to the scorer's table. And during that period of time, the game got away by another three or 4 points. So this is what's happening now every single night with Jimmy, because they won't feed Bam, because Tyler is up and down, even though I thought he played well last night, because you can't count on the role players at all. What's happening every single night is it's this like death march until you get to 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter when Spoelstra sends Butler to the scorer's table, and sometimes they get last night they got a timeout with like 6:07 left. They get a stoppage so that he can finally come in, and then usually they're down somewhere between 3 and 7 points, and they're counting on him to basically be in a frenzy for 6 minutes and carry them to the finish line. And more times than not, he's doing it, or at least he's putting them in position. But how much of a higher level do we expect him to get to in the playoffs? Everybody's like, well, when he gets to playoff Jimmy, he's been playoff Jimmy. Not every night, not for 40 minutes, but in the minutes that he's played, in the 33 minutes, he's playing those minutes at a higher level offensively for an efficiency standpoint than he has at any point over the course of his career. While his rebounds have stayed up, while his assists have stayed up, while his steals have stayed up. What are we expecting him to morph into in the playoffs? LeBron? 2013? I mean, he did it, okay, to get them to the finals in the bubble. He did it at times last year, but also during the playoffs last year, if you remember, when he was bothered by the knee, which could flare up now at any time, he had a 2-game stretch, which was awful. So this idea, again, of just let's, coast, and then Jimmy's going to carry us to the finish line. What do you expect the man to do? This comes in from Alfredo. It might be as simple as Gabe Vincent and Max Strus for as good players this year, and this year they're bad players. I mean, I think what comes down to on this, and thank you, Alfredo. Be sure to follow 3 Yards for Carry for our Dolphins content. I think what it comes down to right now with those guys is they're just being asked to do things that are beyond their scope. I had someone in the organization yesterday who said, we were talking about Max, okay, who they still like. But they were saying, you're okay when Max is like your 7th best player, and you're counting on him to be that. But at times this year, because guys were in and out, because guys have been inconsistent, you're counting on him for more than that. I mean, if they trusted Duncan and all, he would be playing ahead of Max right now with the way the Max is shot. And Gabe, well, it looks like I was wrong about Gabe, because I was pushing Gabe as a potential low-end sort of starting point guard. Kind of like, I'm never going to say low-end for Mario Chalmers. He's a champion. But I'm saying a guy who does not, a guy like Chalmers who plays defense, doesn't demand the ball, can play off the ball, and all that. But, I mean, he hasn't played well. I mean, there's like 4 games in this mix where he started that he's played well. You have to go back to the 2-game stretch against Milwaukee where he scored 55, and I'm not expecting to do that, but just be more consistent. That's all. Give him 10 to 13, an okay efficiency with some assists and things like that. But he's gone through entire games with 1 assist. This one comes in here. Gio. He played 34 minutes last night where Bam had foul trouble and played less than 30. Explain. I can't. Okay, that's the thing. Everybody wanted me to ask the question of Erik Spoelstra. I asked it. Not yesterday, but the previous game I was at. I asked about Jimmy's minutes and the balance between keeping him fresh to the finish line, but also playing him enough so that you don't lose some of these games you need to beat. You need to win against teams that you need to beat. And Eric basically talked about that balance, but he kind of talked around it. They won't say they have a minutes limit with him. They won't. Earlier, when he was having trouble doing the back-to-backs and before he got a consult with another doctor, they were kind of acknowledging it. They're not acknowledging it now, but you're seeing it. You're seeing it. Okay, last night he squeezed in like an extra minute before the end of the third quarter. But basically, you're talking about trying to win with him playing 33 minutes a game. It's tough because you can't replace what he does. Caleb does some of it, but Caleb is trying to replace what other people are not doing now. Caleb Martin, with the exception of like a 2-week stretch, some of which he was bothered by the Achilles, would we say that Caleb Martin's been their third most consistent player this year? I mean, Tyler's been more dynamic at his top end, but I think you can make an argument that Caleb has been, of their guys, has been the third guy they can count on. And I can tell you the organization is very defensive about Caleb. They will point out to you repeatedly how well he's played this year. And I agree with that. I agree he's a bargain at that contract. We have a disagreement in terms of whether or not he was playing out of position early in the season. But he's been really good. But you can't have it where you kind of know what you're going to get from Bam, know what you're going to get from Jimmy, know what you're going to get from Caleb. And then sometimes you get a really good game from Tyler, and sometimes you get kind of an off game. And then beyond that, you don't know what you're getting from anybody. I mean, I guess Cody Zeller, you kind of know. And I think with Kevin Love, we kind of know what you're not going to get. I watched him on defense last night, and all I can say is I watched him 9 years ago when he was in his prime. All I can say about Love's defense is he was asked a lot after the game about why he wasn't playing in Cleveland and why he wanted to buy out. If you watched his defense last night, you see. His rebounding, he still has a knack for that. His passing is good. He knows where to be on offense. But if he does not if he does not shoot the ball well, he's a liability out there because of the defense. Anyway, I didn't mean to be so negative today, but I mean, does anybody trust the Miami Heat in the play-in? Because that's where they're headed right now. And I said to someone in the locker room last night, I'll close with this. Thanks to our sponsors, All Pro Construction Builders, PricePicks.com. Use the code 5. Also, make sure you subscribe to our Off the Floor Winnow feed. We give you exclusive content there. And make sure you're checking us out on Playback, where we had 5 people on there yesterday just calling the game, having fun with it. Some of us from the arena, and you can watch the stream along with us. I said to somebody last night in the locker room who I've known a very long time, and I said, when's the 5-game winning streak coming? And this person, who is the ultimate optimist, said to me, I don't think it is. Have a good day, everybody.